We all have that one specific room in the house. You know the one I am talking about. It might be the lovely sunroom, an upstairs guest bedroom waiting for the grandkids, or that cozy little reading nook at the end of the hall. In the early morning, it is absolutely beautiful. But by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it transforms into an absolute sauna. Do you remember, when we were younger, during the peak of summer, how we would simply abandon entire sections of our homes? We would just shut the doors and avoid the hot rooms until the sun finally went down. Today, if you ask for advice on how to cool that one miserable room, people will tell you to hire a contractor to tear out the walls and add insulation, or to pay thousands of dollars to install a heavy, complicated mini-split air conditioning unit. But you are on a fixed income, and you certainly should not have to carry heavy window units up the stairs or pay someone a fortune just to make your own home livable. What if I told you that you could take the hottest, most uncomfortable room in your house and turn it into a cool, refreshing sanctuary using nothing but a spray bottle and a few basic principles of passive insulation? Today, we are going to fix that sweltering room step by step, entirely without heavy lifting, power tools, or breaking a sweat. Let's start by stopping that fierce afternoon heat right at the glass, before it ever has a chance to enter the room. When you walk into that hot room in the middle of the afternoon, the very first thing you notice is the sun just relentlessly beating against the glass. It feels like you are stepping inside an oven. Now, when we were younger, our immediate reaction was to pull down the heaviest, darkest blackout shades we could find. Or we would spend an entire weekend standing on rickety step stools, straining our shoulders and our lower backs to hang thick, velvet thermal curtains. It was absolutely exhausting. And worse, it completely plunged the room into a depressing darkness, making a beautiful, bright summer day feel like the middle of the night. You shouldn't have to live in a dark cave just to stay cool, and you certainly shouldn't have to risk a terrible fall or shoulder pain wrestling with heavy fabric. Many folks assume the only other option is to pay a contractor thousands of dollars to install brand new, double-paned insulated windows. But I promise you, you can block that intense heat entirely on your own, using a brilliant solution that weighs absolutely nothing and costs less than a cup of coffee. We are going to use a wonderful principle of physics called a radiant barrier, combined with thermal air pockets. I want you to think about those shiny, lightweight sunshades you put in the windshield of your car. Even though they are practically paper thin, they stop the steering wheel from burning your hands because they physically disrupt the sun's radiant energy. We can create that exact same invisible shield for your home windows using ordinary, everyday bubble wrap. Yes, the simple, large bubble packing material. Those hundreds of little trapped air pockets act as a brilliant thermal insulator, catching the heat before it can ever pass through the glass. Here is the completely zero-effort way to apply it. You take a small, lightweight plastic spray bottle filled with plain tap water. Just give a gentle mist over the inside of the window pane. Then, you take a sheet of that bubble wrap, with the flat side facing the glass, and simply press it gently against the wet window. That is it. You do not need any sticky tape, you do not need any messy glue, and you do not need any tools. The water creates a natural, effortless suction, and the wrap will beautifully cling to your window for months. And here is a wonderful money-saving benefit. Because the bubble wrap is translucent, it still allows the beautiful, soft natural light to glow into the room, keeping your space bright and cheerful while entirely blocking the burning heat. When winter comes and you want that warmth back, you just grab a corner with 2 fingers and peel it off effortlessly. You have stopped the sun right at the source, saving your air conditioner from working overtime and saving your joints from the strain of heavy curtains. But blocking the direct sunlight is only the first part of the puzzle. Because even with the bubble wrap doing its amazing job, the glass pane itself is still getting warm, and it is secretly pouring an invisible waterfall of heat straight down onto your floor. Now that we have that bubble wrap securely on the glass, we have successfully stopped the sun's harsh, direct rays from baking your room. But before we tackle the next invisible source of heat, if you are finding these gentle, everyday science tricks helpful for making your home more comfortable, I would be absolutely delighted if you took a moment to subscribe to the channel, or perhaps share this video with a friend who might need some relief from the summer heat. So, the direct sunlight is blocked, but we are not completely finished with the window just yet, because even with the bubble wrap doing its wonderful job, the physical glass pane itself is still going to get warm from the outside air. and that warm glass is secretly leaking an invisible wave of heat right down to your floor. Do you remember in the past, thinking that the only way to stop a drafty or hot window was to buy incredibly thick, expensive thermal drapes? I remember spending hours standing on a rickety step stool, arms aching, reaching over my head, trying to thread a heavy rod through stiff velvet fabric. It was a nightmare for the shoulders and lower back. And the frustrating part? Even after all that exhausting work, if you stood near the bottom of those heavy curtains, you could still feel warm air spilling out onto your feet. You absolutely do not need to buy new, heavy curtains. And you certainly should never have to risk a terrible fall climbing on a step stool. You can keep your beautiful, lightweight curtains exactly where they are. We are going to stop that heat from entering the room using a brilliant, zero-effort scientific principle called convection loops. Here is exactly what is happening behind your curtains right now. As the air trapped between your window and your curtain touches that warm glass, it heats up. Hot air naturally wants to move. It rolls down the window pane, slips right out from under the bottom hem of your curtain, and floods across your floor. It is literally a continuous, invisible waterfall of heat pouring into your room. And as that hot air escapes out the bottom, it pulls more air in over the top of the curtain rod to replace it, creating a constant, rolling loop of heat. To stop a waterfall, we simply have to put a lid on it. We need to create what scientists call a dead air space. If you already have a decorative valance box mounted over the top of your curtains, you are actually in luck, because that box naturally blocks the air from rolling over the top. But if you only have a standard curtain rod, here is a completely effortless, brilliant secret. Take a few small pieces of standard, lightweight blue painter's tape, the gentle kind that will never harm your paint or wallpaper. Simply reach up and tape the very top edge of your existing curtain fabric directly to the wall, just above the window frame. That is all it takes. By sealing that top edge, you completely break the convection loop. The hot air can no longer pull new air over the top, which means it stops moving entirely. It stays trapped behind the fabric, acting as a highly effective, invisible thermal shield. You have just created a high-end thermal barrier without spending a single dime on new drapes or lifting a heavy metal rod. Your room is protected, and your joints are perfectly safe. But now that we have successfully sealed the heat out, we have to deal with the atmosphere that is left behind inside the room. Because even in a beautifully shaded, thermally protected space, the air itself can still hold onto moisture, making the room feel incredibly heavy, swampy, and stifling to breathe. So, our windows are completely protected. We have successfully blocked the direct sun with our bubble wrap, and we have trapped that invisible waterfall of heat by sealing the top of our curtains. The room is finally shaded and thermally secured. But as you step into the room to enjoy your hard work, you might notice something else. Even though the direct heat is gone, the air itself can still feel incredibly heavy. It might feel swampy, stifling, and just generally hard to breathe. Do you remember the old saying we used to repeat every summer? It is not the heat, it is the humidity. And it is absolutely true. When the air is thick with moisture, your body cannot naturally cool itself down. If you ask for advice on how to fix a humid room today, almost everyone will tell you to go out and buy a heavy, expensive electric dehumidifier. But let's be honest about what owning one of those machines actually means. They hum and rattle loudly, ruining the peace and quiet of your home. They constantly drain electricity. And worst of all, they require you to bend over, lift, and carefully carry a heavy, sloshing bucket of water to the sink or bathtub every single day. That is a terrible strain on your lower back, your knees, and it creates a very real slipping hazard if that water spills on the floor. You do not need to wrestle with heavy machinery or waste your electricity. We can pull the moisture out of the air completely silently, without ever plugging anything in or lifting a heavy tank. We are going to use a brilliant, natural chemical process called hygroscopic absorption. Now, that sounds like a complicated term from a college science class, but you actually see this process happen all the time in your own kitchen. Think about the salt shaker sitting on your dining table during a rainy, humid week. The salt gets all clumped up and stuck together, right? That happens because salt physically pulls moisture directly out of the air. We are going to use a safe, natural salt compound called calcium chloride to do the exact same thing on a much larger scale. Here is all you have to do. The next time you are at the grocery store or a local hardware store, look in the cleaning aisle for a simple, inexpensive moisture absorber. A very common brand is DampRid. They come in little plastic tubs that weigh just a few ounces. You simply peel off the protective foil lid, take a slow walk upstairs, and gently set the tub on a shelf or tucked away in the corner of your hot room. That is your entire job. You never have to touch it again until it is fully dissolved. Those little white crystals inside the tub act like a powerful, silent magnet. They will constantly and quietly pull the heavy, sticky humidity right out of the air, trapping it safely as liquid water in the bottom of the container. It costs just a few dollars. It uses absolutely zero electricity, and it requires no physical strain whatsoever. As that humidity slowly drops, a wonderful thing happens. The air in the room will instantly feel 5 to 8 degrees cooler against your skin, simply because it is dry. You will be able to breathe easier, and your entire body will feel lighter and more comfortable. You have successfully conquered both the heat and the humidity. But right now, with the door closed to protect this newly cooled environment, we face our next challenge. The air in the room is getting dry, but it is also getting stale. If we want this room to truly feel fresh and alive, we need to move that old air out. But do not worry, we are not going to drag any heavy box fans up the stairs to do it. So, our little moisture absorber is quietly doing its job in the corner. The intense heat is blocked at the window, and that heavy, swampy humidity is completely gone. The room finally feels cool and dry against your skin. But because we have kept the door shut tight to protect this wonderful new environment, we run into a very natural next problem. The air is starting to feel a bit stale and trapped. Now, when we were younger, our immediate solution for a stuffy room was to drag a heavy, rattling box fan all the way up the stairs to try and blow the air out. Or we would simply throw the bedroom door wide open to the hallway. But leaving the door wide open completely ruins your privacy. Even worse, it destroys all the hard work we just did, because it lets the ambient heat from the rest of the upstairs pour right back into our cool sanctuary. And we certainly are not going to risk a fall, a twisted knee, or a pulled muscle carrying awkward heavy fans around the house. You don't need extra fans, and you don't need to sacrifice your privacy. We can refresh the air in this room continuously and completely silently. We are going to use the existing airflow of your home to create something called positive pressure. It works using a fascinating piece of physics known as the Bernoulli effect. If you look out in your hallway, you likely have a return vent for your central air or heating system, usually a large metal grate on the wall or ceiling. Even when your system isn't running at full blast, that vent acts like a giant, gentle vacuum for the entire house. We are going to use that hallway vacuum to pull the stale air right out of our problem room. Here is the completely effortless, zero-strain way to do it. Simply walk over to the door of your hot room, and instead of leaving it wide open or shutting it completely tight, crack it open just 2 or 3 inches. That is the entire secret. By keeping the opening very narrow, you force the air to squeeze through a tight space. As the air squeezes through that small crack, the physics of the Bernoulli effect causes it to physically speed up, creating a natural, constant draft. That draft actively pushes the old, stale air out of the room and straight into the hallway, where your house's return vent will effortlessly sweep it away. And as a quick, sensible tip, keeping the door mostly closed means your pets won't wander in and knock things over, and your precious cooled air stays right where you need it most. You are continuously cleaning and refreshing the air in the room without plugging in a single machine or lifting a finger. The old, stale air is moving out, the intense heat is blocked, and the thick humidity has been completely conquered. But to make this space truly perfect, we need to breathe a little bit of vibrant life back into it, and we are going to do it using nature's own beautiful, zero-maintenance micro air conditioner. So, the stale air is continuously flowing out into the hallway, the intense sun is blocked at the glass, and that heavy humidity is completely gone. The room is finally physically comfortable, but right now, it might feel just a little bit sterile. If we want this room to truly feel like a welcoming sanctuary, a place where you actually want to sit and relax, or a comfortable bedroom for the grandkids to visit, we need to breathe some vibrant, fresh life back into it. Folks often think the only way to make a closed-off room feel fresh is to buy an expensive electronic air purifier or spray heavy, artificial air fresheners. But aerosol sprays can be terrible for your lungs, and electronic purifiers are just one more bulky machine you have to plug in. Worse yet, they require you to constantly bend down, open stiff plastic panels, and wrestle with dirty, expensive replacement filters. We do not need to introduce any noisy machines or harsh chemicals into your beautiful room. We can naturally condition and refresh the air using a beautiful, completely zero-effort biological process. It relies on a piece of natural science called transpiration. This is a very elegant term for a beautifully simple process. Just like human beings perspire to naturally cool down our bodies, plants do the exact same thing. When a plant takes in a tiny bit of water, it releases microscopic, pure water vapor through its leaves. As that vapor enters the room, it instantly cools the immediate air around it and quietly filters out everyday household toxins. It acts as nature's own completely silent micro-air conditioner. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Taking care of houseplants sounds like a lot of work.